In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The world was full of potential, beauty, and goodness. God saw everything he had made and declared it very good. The earth was filled with life and promise, and God created humans in his own image to steward and cultivate this good creation. He gave them a special role, a partnership, to work together with him to bring out the fullness of goodness in the world. This partnership was like a divine collaboration. God was the creator, the master gardener, planting and nurturing the world. Humans were his partners, entrusted with caring for the earth, filling it with life, and expanding his goodness. God walked with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, communicating with them, sharing his love, and inviting them into a close relationship. But this partnership was built on trust and obedience. However, from the very beginning, humans chose to rebel against this partnership. Adam and Eve listened to the serpent's lies and disobeyed God's command. They wanted to create their own way, to be independent from God. They ate the forbidden fruit, and in doing so, they broke their relationship with God. Sin entered the world and fractured the partnership that God had established. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that humanity's rejection of God's partnership leads to chaos, injustice, suffering, and death. The world became a place of corruption, violence, and brokenness. Every generation seemed to drift further away from the original harmony with God. The Bible describes how humans, instead of partnering with God, often pursued their own selfish desires, creating systems of injustice and violence. Yet, even amidst this brokenness, God's love remained steadfast. From the very beginning, God had a plan to restore what was lost. He chose to initiate a new kind of relationship with his people, a covenant. A covenant is like a sacred partnership, a promise made between God and humans, where God commits to being faithful, and his people are called to trust and obey him. The first covenant we see in the Bible is with Noah. After humanity's widespread corruption and violence, God decided to cleanse the earth with a great flood. Only Noah, a righteous man, and his family were spared. After the flood waters receded, God made a promise to Noah. He said, "I will establish my covenant with you, and never again will I destroy all living creatures with a flood." God assured Noah that the earth would remain a reliable place for humans and animals to live and work together. The sign of this covenant was a rainbow, a reminder that God's promise to never again destroy the earth in such a way. What is remarkable about this covenant is that God's faithfulness does not depend on human perfection. Despite knowing that humanity's evil would still persist, God committed to his promise. This was his way of showing mercy and establishing a foundation for future relationships. The next major covenant is made with Abraham. God chose Abram, later called Abraham, and promised to bless him and his descendants. God said, "I will make you into a great nation, I will bless you and make your name great, and you will be a blessing." God promised to give Abraham and his family the land of Canaan, a place where they could flourish. But the purpose of this covenant was bigger than just Abraham's family. God said that through Abraham's descendants, all nations of the earth would be blessed. In return, God asked Abraham to trust him and to lead his family in doing what was right and just. Abraham believed God, and because of his faith, God counted it to him as righteousness. This covenant was about trust, faithfulness, and obedience. It marked the beginning of God's plan to bring blessing and salvation to the whole world through Abraham's lineage. As time passed, Abraham's family grew into a large tribe, the nation of Israel. God entered into a new covenant with this nation at Mount Sinai. Moses led the people out of Egypt, and God gave them laws, guidelines for living well as his chosen people. These laws included commandments about loving God, honoring parents, caring for the poor, and acting justly. If Israel obeyed these laws, God promised to bless them and make them a light to all nations, representing his goodness. This covenant with Israel was about being a holy nation, a kingdom of priests, called to demonstrate God's justice and mercy. The laws were a reflection of God's character and his desire for human flourishing. Sadly, Israel often broke this covenant by worshipping other gods, allowing injustice to flourish, and neglecting their commitments. Then, there was the covenant with King David. Israel's monarchy reached its height under David, a man after God's own heart. God promised David that his throne would be established forever and that one of his descendants would reign over God's kingdom in righteousness and peace. God said, "Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me, your throne will be established forever." This promise pointed forward to a future king, a Messiah, who would bring everlasting peace and justice. But Israel's history was marked by failure. The people continued to turn away from God, worship false gods, and commit acts of injustice. As a result, they lost their land, were exiled from their homeland, and their kings were often unfaithful. Despite their failures, prophets foretold that God would not abandon his covenant forever. They spoke of a coming day when God would restore the broken relationship and renew his promises with his people. This hope of renewal is what the prophets called the New Covenant. They foretold a time when God would write his laws on people's hearts and forgive their sins completely. This new covenant would be one of inner transformation, not just external obedience. It would restore the partnership between God and his people in a way that would last forever. And then, the story reaches its most profound moment with Jesus Christ. Jesus is introduced into this story as the fulfillment of all these covenant promises. He was born into the family of Abraham, making him a true descendant of the promise to bless all nations. He was a faithful Israelite, perfectly obeying God's laws, showing what true partnership with God looks like. And he was from the line of David, the rightful king whose reign would never end. Jesus' life and ministry were about extending God's kingdom of justice, peace, and love to everyone. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, forgave sinners, and challenged injustice. Jesus taught that the way to restore the broken partnership with God was through faith, love, and obedience. He called people to follow him, to become part of a new community, a new covenant family, where God's love would be written on their hearts. The most astonishing part of Jesus' story is that he is not just a great teacher or a noble man. The Bible reveals that Jesus is God become human. Through Jesus, God himself entered into our world to repair what was broken. Jesus' death on the cross was the ultimate act of covenant faithfulness. He took upon himself the punishment for humanity's rebellion. His resurrection proved that God's promise of new life and eternal partnership was available to all who trust in him. Through Jesus, the door is open for anyone to enter into a renewed partnership with God. Jesus invites all people to follow him, to become part of his family and to live according to his teachings. This new covenant is based on grace and truth, offering forgiveness and a fresh start. It is a promise that no matter how much we have failed, God's love can restore us and make us new. The story of the Bible does not end with brokenness but points towards a future hope, a new heaven and a new earth where God's partnership with his people is fully restored. In this renewed world, everyone will work alongside God in harmony, bringing goodness, justice, and peace to all creation. The curse of sin and death will be gone forever, and God's glory will fill the earth. So, the overarching story of the Bible is about God's relentless love and his desire to restore his partnership with humanity. From the very beginning, God has been working to bring us back into a loving, trusting relationship. He invites us to accept his covenant, to follow Jesus, and to become partners with him in his mission of renewal. Remember, this story is not just ancient history. It is a living story that continues today. God is still calling each of us into partnership with him. He wants us to trust him, obey him, and work with him to make the world a better place. No matter how broken the world seems, God's promise remains, his love will never fail, and his covenant will be fulfilled. Thank you for joining us in exploring this incredible story. If you found this story inspiring, please like, comment, and share with others. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories from the Bible. Together, we can spread the message of God's love and His plan to restore the world. May God bless you as you walk in His partnership today and always.